Hi, Pastor Jay here. Just want to show you something. As you look at this little chart that I have right here, you can see this is the old city of Jerusalem, and this is the Temple Mount up here. Here's a picture of the temple, the Jewish temple, back when it was in 70 AD, and during the time of Jesus, it looked very much the same. You have this huge retaining wall that was really, really tall and massive, and this gigantic flight of stairs that goes up here in this direction right here. I wanted to show you this for a special reason, which we'll get to in just a second, but you're going to need to remember that arch and those stairs. Now, behind me, these are giant, what they call ashlars. That means they're huge building blocks made of stone. And as you can tell by the frame that's around each one of these and how tightly they're fit, there's no mortar there, they're just fit snugly in there. These were made by King Herod the Great because that was his trademark, having this little raised area in the middle called a boss, and then a little frame around the outside, fairly smooth and just elegant looking stones. And this is, of course, part of a stone structure from the time of Jesus. It was a very old thing. These were shops back in the old days. However, as we come around this direction, it looks a little bit different right over here. These stones came from up there, way up there. And these fell during the time of the Great Revolt in 70 AD. They were thrown off the top of the Temple Mount, and they were part, once again, of the retaining wall, or perhaps another structure that was up there known as Solomon's Colonnade. Now, we're at the southwest end of the temple. That's over here. The Temple Mount is over here. This is just the retaining wall, but this is part of the retaining wall. So I just want to clear a little bit up that some people say this was part of the temple. It wasn't. Jesus said not one stone would be left upon another when he was talking about the temple itself, this building over here, and that was indeed the case because when it fell, it burned, and it was plated with gold for 160 feet on the front of it. You think the Romans are going to let that sit there? They tore it apart block by block after the fire had calmed down and pulled out all the gold, which subsequently was shipped by Titus to Rome, held in a bank, and then by the time Hadrian got it, he built something out of it, and the legacy of this temple, the Jewish temple here in Jerusalem, is probably the Colosseum in Rome because the dedication plaque read, "Built with the gold from the temple." But these things here, part of the destruction in Jerusalem, and once again, from way up there, thrown down by the Romans. If the Romans knew how to do any one thing, it was destroy. But you know how it stops right there. The pile ends right there. And it's not because the archaeologists came up here and said, we'll just clear it out to this point and you can see what the destruction brought. If you look up here, you'll see rocks sticking right out of the side of the building, right out of the side of the retaining wall. This was part of this arch. If you're looking at it here, it was this part right here. That's all that's left of that gigantic arch, right there, sticking out. So it arced way over the top. We'd be in the shade right now. When the blocks fell, they missed the arch because they were falling down, so you have this big blank spot. But when the arch finally collapsed, it crushed the paving stones, as you can see right down here, with the massive weight of the stone when the arch finally was broken down and smashed into the pavement down here. This pavement, some people say, was where Jesus walked back in the day, but actually this pavement was put in by Herod Agrippa. So he didn't walk on these particular stones. We know he certainly walked on another part though. But one last thing I want to show you, and then we'll do another video later, is these blocks here. They're just absolutely beautiful. Once again, put up by King Herod the Great. They have half-inch tolerances in them if you happen to be an engineer, so you could hit this thing with a gigantic, like an atomic bomb or something, and it just wouldn't budge. The notches that you see up here, and even above up here, and even above up there, show you where ground level was. As just the years passed after the destruction of the temple, this was all exposed to where I'm standing all the way back to the time when the temple was destroyed. But eventually it just filled up with debris and dirt, and that was ground level, and they cut that as a channel where they could put things like wood in their wood beams in order to help build homes to hold the stone up or whatever, and drainages. And then it built up again, and you can see another one there. So, and then even one higher where they had it, so you can see just how far the erosion built up. We think erosion takes things down, but sometimes it builds things up. And if you look at the stones, one last thing, the discoloration that you see there isn't because it was underground. Fire creates a chemical reaction within the limestones and it turns them different colors. So you're looking at, with the different color stones here and the mottled look of it, you're looking at the effect of the great fire that was here during the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So a massive place. Over here, one last thing, this corner, of course you can see, is the corner of the retaining wall right here, what's left of it. But what you see on top, where it ends at the little point on top, adds 60 feet to it. It went up that high. This was absolutely one of the most massive construction projects in the known world, rivaling even the Great Pyramids of Egypt as far as the building project goes. And it took a long, long time to build, almost 80 years. So an incredible project. And this is the action in Jerusalem in Jesus' day. This is where it all took place. And as Jesus predicted, you're going to see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. In other words, laid siege to. Get out, he said at that time. That's not end times prophecy. He talked about end times prophecy as well. But he talked about their immediate future, and in 70 AD, down came Jerusalem with the Romans. So here's what you have here: the great Temple Mount, the Herodian blocks, the debris, what's left of the arch. What a spectacular place to be. Here we are in Jerusalem.